Are you ready to become awesomer? Hello everyone, my name is Umar Hamid. I'm your host on the No Limit Selling podcast, where industry leaders share their tips, strategy, and advice on how you can become better, stronger, faster. Just before we get started, I've got a question for you. Do you have a negative voice inside your head? We all do, right? I'm going to help you remove that voice in under 30 days guaranteed. Not only remove it, but transform it. So instead of the voice that sabotages you, there's one that propels you to much higher levels of performance and success. There's a link in the show notes. Click on it to find out more. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the No Limit Selling podcast. Today, we've got a brilliant guest. It's Jeff Sands, and he's going to talk to us about how he built his business, how he built his life, and how the universe sometimes surprises you and gets you to re-examine what the hell's going on. But before we go there, coming really soon, we've got a new app coming out. It's called Mindset Boosters. It will give you the ability to decide how you feel and act in any situation. So if you're feeling anxiety, listen to a track. It shows you how to take charge of your mindset, and you will be anxiety free for the next 2 hours. So you can boldly go and do something fabulous, whether that's asking that attractive person out on a date or closing a deal or just spending time in your own presence. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Umar. Thanks a lot for having me.
So Jeff, you were saying that, life's going perfectly well. And then the universe decided to say, guess what? You're going to be a parent, not once, but twice. So tell me what was going on there. You're in the real estate business. Did you get over that hump? Because initially when the pandemic came, there was panic in the real estate industry. But, a few months into it, people realized, and I'm hearing from agents that have been in the business for 30, 40 years, that this is either the second best market they've ever seen in 40 years. So where were you in the pandemic when you realized that we're going to have a baby?
Oh my God. So it was the fall of 2019. Katie and I found out that we were having our first child, Mitchell. And that was 6 months, I guess, before the pandemic started.
Yeah.
So it would have been March of 2020 was when I remember for the first time in my 20 years of selling real estate that we were not able to show houses or list houses. We were all told to stay home. And Mitchell was born in July. So everything was kind of coming at us actually at that time in early 2020. And yeah, it was frightening. It was frightening to say the least at that time.
Yeah. When did you see the market turn around? It seemed to me like as March, April, May, there was like panic setting in. Then all of a sudden, houses were getting multiple offers. And I was talking to one of my clients, a CEO, and he said, when the pandemic first started, they had to work from home. He said his kids annoyed him for the first 2 weeks. And then he realized, oh my God, this is such a blessing. And it became a joyous time for him. But for realtors, after about 3 months of pandemic, house prices started going through the roof, multiple offers, and it was like a boom time for the industry. How did you cope with, a new baby and the market picking up?
That's a great question. When you're in it, you're just in the trenches, right? And you work and you put your shoes on and you lace your shoes up and you go to work. Having some time to reflect now, it was a really crazy time. We had Mitchell was our firstborn. I was 40 years old, had my firstborn, and that was in July of 2020. Well, right after people were being allowed back out and things were semi starting to normalize after the first real shutdown in the spring of 2020. People had been cooped up. Interest rates were, historically low. And the market that I'm in is Peterborough and the Kawarthas, which is just outside of the, and it absolutely started to boom. And I think a lot of people started to rethink, they were working from home and they started to rethink, family time and quality of life, everything that points to our market, right, which is about an hour outside of Toronto. And it went absolutely crazy. And in my 20 years, I've never experienced the type of demand, and ultimately the lack of supply just drove the market to heights that we've never seen.
Absolutely. And the people that were the happiest, I think, were pool guys. Because all of a sudden people were saying, we can't go on vacation and we're here together and I'm going to get a kick-ass amazing pool put in my backyard and all this home renovation. And the interesting thing to me was this, and we'll talk real estate in a minute, but what's more important to human beings is that, at least from my point of view, we told a lie to ourselves. We told a lie that, the most important thing to me is family, and then my career, and then my friends. And the reality was, for most people, work was the most important, then family and friends. And what the pandemic ended up doing was people rethinking that and going, oh my God, I've got this amazing family and I get to be there with my kids and my family and my spouse. And it was almost like the universe smacking everyone on the head saying, hey, pay attention to what's most important. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're still seeing the fallout from that. Like just so many people having career changes. And, I talk to a lot of colleagues and clients that have really struggled to find quality employees and people leaving certain industries. And, it's really, it's had a huge ripple effect throughout everyone's lives.
World, yeah. Like just down the street is a Portuguese bakery, and they get these spinach pastries every morning, and they've not been getting them for a while because workers don't want to work there anymore. Like they're making decisions like, hey, I don't want this job anymore. And these guys are basically stopping production, is shutting down a whole factory. And it's because people are re-examining their lives. Because I think ultimately at the end of the day, Jeff, there's a better you inside you. And the way to find that better you is there's an authentic Jeff who is strong, powerful, loving, amazing. Oftentimes we wear different masks. Like, hey, I'm a consultant. Hey, I'm this, I'm that. When you get down to who you truly are, it changes. The world changes around you. And I think that's the journey as human beings. And I suspect that's what you want for your children. You've got two of them now, is that if they can just be who they were meant to be, that they would have a fabulous life. And it's a hard thing to accomplish.
Well, yeah, it actually is one of the hardest things when you really start to look at yourself and try to find your true authentic self. I started examining myself. I'm actually in recovery, Umar, and I got into recovery back in 2018, and really just to re-examine everything about my life. I'd been selling real estate since the early 2000s. I'd gotten burnt out. The business can really take a lot from you. And when you're young and you don't really, I don't know, you just look at the world, you just look at the world differently. Let's just say that. And
what were you recovering from?
it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do was just really look and try and figure out who Jeff was and what Jeff wanted in life.
Yeah.
And, try and find my true authentic self. And it's a journey, right? I'm still on it. And I think a lot of people through the pandemic have really started out on a new journey. They really have.
So let me ask you, what do you recover from, Jeff?
From alcohol.
One of my favorite realtors in the world, his name is Michael Schiff, and he's a ex-drug addict and, is doing amazing things. And he also invited other ex-drug addicts to join his real estate business. And they are passionate professionals and all sober and building amazing lives and creating wealth for the people around them. And my friend Michael just opened up a rehab place as well, because that was part of his mission, is to help other people. And real estate is such a good business for providing a great career that allows you to follow your path as well.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of businesses, like you're really tied down all the time. Real estate, it's not easy, but if you choose to, you can build other things as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, you just have to be very mindful of it because it can take a lot from you, right? It really did from me anyway in my late 20s and early 30s. And we're very busy and very successful, but it's an emotional roller coaster, right? I often tell my clients we're on an emotional roller coaster, but you get to get off one day and I just keep riding it, right? And especially through residential real estate, I think, Umar, some of my friends are in commercial real estate and it just seems a little bit different as far as the emotional side of it, right? It's more business and numbers and Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, from what I understand, where residential real estate is 24/7, 7 days a week, right? So I just had to be very mindful and really take a look at my life and just see what was important to me. And that was part of, Katie and I wanting to start a family. And yeah, and it's all worked out great.
So what's kind of interesting is your commercial friends in commercial real estate, you may have noticed they're not dead. And the reason I mention that is that, residential real estate, took a dip, then all of a sudden it blossomed into the strongest market. For the people in the commercial space, it was like a disaster for like at least a year. They all survived. And I think that's a life lesson that we need to learn, is that when I think about the financial ruin that was possible for me several times, it never happened. Money showed up just in time. Near death accidents in the car or whatever never occurred. And I think ultimately what we need to realize is that we are here on planet Earth and everybody has a purpose in life. And my purpose is to teach people how to take charge of their mindset so they can remove their limitations and become who they've always meant to be, because the maker didn't put you here to struggle. It's of our own devices. Just as your kids grow up, you're noticing that they are too dumb to know nothing is possible. They're learning, they're walking, they're asking questions, they're inquisitive, they're passionate. When they want something, they wholeheartedly go there. And somewhere along the journey, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I shouldn't do this. People will think that. I shouldn't do that. And if we can just retain that light within us. And I think that's what you're doing, Jeff, is as you're discovering who you are, you're allowing that possibility for the light within you to shine. And I know we're talking about real estate, but it doesn't matter what you do when you embrace who you are and you allow that powerful version of you to show up. You're there more strongly for your wife, for your kids, for your clients, and for yourself, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even to be able to share the fact that I'm in recovery with you is, that's 7 years in the making for me, right? Like that's I'm getting closer to that core authentic self and core authentic person that I really am and who I want to be, right? And really at the end of the day, I find it's all about relationships. It really is. And it's building relationships with my family, my friends, my colleagues, my clients, right? And the more authentic I can be, it's just a feeling. It's really hard to explain. I guess it's a connection I'm able to make with people that I wasn't able to make before.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is this, as I'm sure, Jeff, you were prettier and more amazing 10 years ago, but that was the inauthentic you. And I might have gone, hey, I like Jeff, but the Jeff I see right now is someone that is just being Jeff. Here I am. And there is a stronger connection that I get to do. And there's going to be some people that are like, oh, I don't like Jeff. And that's okay too. But there's more people are going to feel that connection strongly because there's so few of us out there that are truly being ourselves that it's a rarity and it's a blessing. And I think when you step into who you are, you give permission to the people around you to do the same thing. And that's what I think is so important, is when you're you allow them to be them.
Yeah, you're
see the possibility of it.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And it just gives people this comfort level that, maybe they might have had a shield up or a guard up, and really it's just such an easier way to live. It's just so much less energy and I can focus my energy on things that are super important to me, right? Because when you have those masks and those walls up, I do a lot of reading now just since I've been in recovery about, how domesticated we become as children, and you get domesticated the older you get. And, a lot of people vote the same way their parents voted, or eat the food their parents eat, or, and then they, when they really, some of us that are lucky enough to really start to just examine who we are, we start figuring out, well, my father-in-law, actually, he always has this great saying that he tells me, we really figure out that we're adults when we see the weaknesses in our parents. And it's just such a great, it's
brilliant. And I like the flip side of the coin. Adults don't raise kids, kids raise adults.
Yeah, that's great. I haven't heard that before. That's great.
And what's kind of interesting is as you become your authentic self, you get to be the role model for your kids. Whereas before you say something and you do something different, and now you get to kind of walk your talk, which is like the best model. So it's you and your wife in the business. Who else is part of your team?
Yeah, so there's 4 of us, actually. There's myself and Katie. Katie and I have been partners. I'm originally born and raised in Kingston. Katie had went there to go to Queen's University. Her and I met in Kingston. She actually used to skate on the Canadian national figure skating team with back when they were like 15 years old. So Katie and I met, and she was actually my first assistant, and that didn't work out great. And then she went out and worked on her own for a couple of years, and then joined my brother and I'm going to say around 2006, 2007. Partners. We've been business partners. We got married in 2010. So we've been married for 12 years. And then we also have 2 full-time executive assistants that work with us, Sydney and Jessica. And both of them, Sydney's originally from Hamilton and Jessica's originally from Eastern Ontario, like Brighton, Belleville area. And they both ended up in the Peterborough area, and they both joined Katie and I over the last couple of years.
So Jeff, you've seen many realtors in your career. So realtors that are, doing 20 transactions a year, 10 to 20, like they're not really at the level of success they're capable of. What are the biggest things that get in the way? What are the biggest things that cause them anxiety that stop them from reaching their potential, do you think?
Oh my God, that's a great question, and I think that just being authentic, so many, just going back to our original conversation, just being authentic, I don't know, connecting, building relationships. So much of everything we do is about the relationship that we build with our clients, right? And I think a lot of people get into this business for, a last ditch effort to get rich or quick money.
Yeah.
So, people checking their motives, but that would be one of the biggest things, just people failing to be authentic and building the long-term relationship with people.
So one of the things I'm going to be launching soon is a 60-day journey It's 8 weeks, and week one, people get to figure out their purpose in life. Why am I here on planet Earth? And one of the things it does for realtors is that you get to align your practice with who you are. So not like, because there's like hundreds of thousands of realtors in North America, and distinguishing yourself is hard to do. And if you do it like artificially, it's inauthentic. But if you know who you are, my purpose in life is to do X, then that becomes a mission of your company. You can also pick a vision along that pathway to build something significant. Week two is identifying your biggest fears and removing those, learning how to take charge of this. And just over the course of 8 weeks, the idea is to transform human beings, agents, from who they thought they were to who they actually are. And when you do that, they just become stronger, more certain, more confident, and happier in what they're building. And I think that becomes attractive for clients, for their spouses, for their kids. And that's going to be my legacy, is teaching people how to, instead of spending years at a mountain meditating, to just freaking 60 days, baby, figure out who you are and build a life in alignment with who you are. And it just makes that journey so much easier, because you're building something that's true and powerful, as opposed to, this is what I think I want. Because way too many people get to build a life that they think they want. They get there and go, is that all there is? I thought I'd be happier or more at peace. And kind of thoughts on that. Do you think that's a journey worth taking?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that sounds like recovery to me, to be honest with you. It's like a form of recovery, finding yourself, right?
Yeah.
And when are you starting that?
So going to start that in September, and it's going to be a joyous journey. And I think because last year, April in 2021, I had this thought, holy crap, I've only got 30 years left on planet Earth. If everything goes well, I've got good genes and all that stuff. Have I had an impact on the world? And the answer was no. You've not had an impact on the world. So it's like, if I stay here in my comfortable life, in my comfortable house, with my comfortable clients, nothing's going to change. So I sold my house, got rid of all the possessions, and just kept 10 t-shirts, literally 2 shirts. So I look pretty when I need to, and started traveling the world. And as I was traveling, what I uncovered was is that happiness is everywhere, but people are so busy looking at what's wrong that they miss out on the joy of life. So my mission is happiness. And one of the ways to do that is to help people become authentic and learn how to become fearless. Because if we did that, it would just make the world a better place. Because ultimately, you said the magic words. It's all about relationships. And when I can be me truly and powerfully, when I build a friendship with Jeff, that's a friendship that lasts. That's a friendship that counts. When I try and I want to be fancy and I want Jeff to like me and all that stuff, sure you would, because I'm a charming guy, but you'd feel there's a disconnect. And that's my hope for humanity. Be yourself and reach out to the world with happiness and love.
Yeah, well, if we could move away from fear to love, right? Wouldn't it? That's it. That's the secret, right? That's amazing. Good for you.
And this is what I think. This is love's on one side, and the other side of the coin is fear. It's the same continuum. And
Yeah.
Jeff, I want to thank you so much for being on the program today, but I have 2 questions for you before we part.
Yeah.
Number one, specifically, and think of a moment, what makes you happy?
Quiet time with my family.
Yeah.
That's really what makes me happy. If I really think, and I'm being really honest with you, quiet time with my 2 young boys and my wife is really what makes me happy.
Thank you for sharing that. And, there's people out there looking for, when I get the Tesla, when I get the job, when I get the client, and just something as simple and accessible as that brings you joy to your core. Second question, what is one piece of advice you would give people to live better lives, be better realtors, that they could implement today that would make them happier, more successful, sleep better, love better? What would that be?
Find their authentic self.
Yeah.
Go on a journey to find out who you really are, not who your parents wanted you to be, not who society wants you to be. Just find out who you really are. What actually makes you peaceful? What brings you peace? And I got on this journey 7 years ago, and it's going to be a journey, hopefully one day at a time, that I live the rest of my life. But it's the best advice I could give anyone. Yeah.
Totally brilliant, Jeff. And can't tell you how useful and pleasant and joyful this conversation was. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure. I really appreciate you reaching out. Thanks so much.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. And if you're looking for more tools, go to my website at nolimitselling.com. I've got a free mind training course there that's going to teach you some insights from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the fastest way to get better results.